I've showed you Doppel, I've showed you Converter, and then I teased it in the previous video. Maybe we can explore other level 2s that we can normal summon, but they have to generate us some sort of resource. Doppel did it in a way with token. Converter did it in a way where we can chain block the Ash and gave us a tuner back instead of just going Converter effect, pitch a tuner and get Ash. But once again, unless you're baiting, then that's perfectly fine. But then I was like, well, is there any other level 2 that allows us to force a response to give this some sort of way to play, assuming it does resolve? Because you want to not just use it as bait, but also be able to play if it does resolve. You don't want it just to be, okay, they didn't respond, so what does this do now? If this resolves alone, you do full Mitsurugi combo. If this resolves, you can reinforce it with Synchron. So your board is insane. If you think of the things that Mitsurugi can do, does the board wipe, the Omni, the constant revive of Futsu, if you combine that with the pivot that is now Scrap Synchron, because that means the only thing that can counter you here is going to have to be an Imperm or a Veiler. If it's an Ash, this is not once per turn, so you can just do it again, which is crazy. So I'm going to show you what this is crazy was. Check this out. This is going to be the first combo. Pretty wild. Okay, activate effect, right? Pay 3,000. If the Ash there, it's fine, right? You do it again. We basically did everything just with one card. Once we get to this point, this will bait the Ash, this will bait the Ash. They're interchangeable, whichever one you choose to do first. That's the cool thing about it. And if they have Imperm, then you just go into your regular Scrap Synchron line, where you just go into Scrap Warrior, search Synchro Fellows, and then go for a speeder there. This is what you want. And along the line, if they're still not sure what to Ash, because they know that you added 2 things that can be Ash, you just try to keep baiting. Do they Ash here? Okay, maybe not. Do they Ash there? I don't know. How long are they gonna hold that Ash for? Right? You go prayers, and you have to do it in a way where you're trying to constantly bait Ash, because they don't know that you're playing this yet. If it's game 1, they're not going to know you're playing this. So you have to use that to your advantage. If they do interact, all the Mitsurugi stuff is basically okay, it's cool. But what you really want to resolve is Speeder, because Speeder does a much more of oppressive board. Insane what it does. So many more boss monsters. Yeah, you get the nuke, you get the destruction, you get the trap, but a Speeder resolving means that you are going to get such a board that it's kind of hard to crack. The Synchron board, it's a bit vulnerable to Dark Ruler or droplets, but you can counter that with Purification, which is awesome, right? So then now we go here, and then now we go into this play, because once we get to this point, now it's a matter, okay, do they Ash this now? If they Ash this, at the very least, you know you have Mitsurugi combo. Hopefully, you would have baited Ash with the previous effects. Maybe they would have Ash. Who knows? We don't know. It's very subjective. People interact at different times. So now, we go Synchro Fellows. We're going to add the Synchron, discard the Synchron, and now we have a junk. And now we're here, okay? We activate Synchro Fellows, so everything from here on out, it doesn't matter. We have our Mitsurugi combo loaded, we have our Junk Synchron loaded, we have our additional summon, and we can continue to play, which is insane. And then now, reduce, and this is gonna force the nib. If they don't nib here, they're like, okay, where do we nib then? That's fine. You want to nib now? Okay, that means your Imperm is dead, because they didn't Imperm the Scrap Synchron, they didn't Imperm the Dogra. But if they didn't, and they're like, okay, well, I'll just nib them here. But then why would they nib there if they know we have Mitsurugi cards, they know we have a Junk Synchron, and they might have just read Synchro Fellows. So now that they know that, it's like, what? It's so obscure. Like, what do they hit? How do they interact? And this forces it, right? This forces it. Because now, we have access to Asti. Asti revives this, and then we're going for Immune Speeder here. Remember, all this is bait. You do not care if this resolves or not. You have 2 more plays now after this, assuming they did not interact. We go SD, they chain Nibiru. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You don't mind at all. It's just so cool. And that's something that Synchron has lacked in the past few years, that we don't, like, we were able to bait or force and still be able to play. And then now, we just raw Speeder. If the Nibiru are here, it doesn't matter. You have so much follow-up. And now, we check the Nibiru or any other hand trap. We go for the Crystal Wing. And then from here on out, once again, it'll depend on what boss monsters that you want. This sequence can change. It'll vary because everyone's going to pick a different boss monster. So this sequence took me a while to get down, because I wanted to make sure I was able to do every single thing, right? The double hand loop, the majestic, while setting up my Mitsurugi board, right? And everything is hard. It was such a headache. But once I was done with it, it was like, oh, it was clear mind moment for sure. Okay, so all this sequencing is done on purpose because you want to get to a point where you can get everything in rotation, okay? So now we got Purification, right? So this Futsu is gonna remain on field because that's how we're gonna get back our Murakumo, okay? So just be mindful of that. This will get us access to our prayers. We revive our Murakumo. trigger trail. And that's the cool thing about Mitsurugi cards. First variant I showed you of Mitsurugi with Stardust. It's so good because you can tribute them off and trigger them their effects, which is insane, right? Okay, so now the rituals are used to climb through and for our high level synchros, which is gonna enable our crimson targets. We go for Excel Synchron, get a token. We're gonna send Stardust, increase by 4. The token is a dragon, as we know now. And here's gonna be the second hand rip. Second hand rip. Junk Synchron. We don't get to revive, but that's perfectly fine. That was a bonus, right? Junk was just ready to summon and bring something back. We're just ready. And now we revive our Crystal Wing. And now we just set this. This board is insane. We can stop Dark Ruler. We can start droplets with Purification. A nuke. One thing to know, I know our life is kind of low, but keep in mind that this guy has an effect. Each time your opponent activates a card or effect, gain 300 life points when it resolves. So every single time he activates a card effect, you're going to gain life points. So you're going to try to replenish your life. Prayers, for whatever reason, if we need to revive Murakumo, we have Omni, double Omni actually, because we have Assault. That's insane. That's crazy. Let me show you the other combos, because there's going to be 4 in total. And this is the first one, and this is by far the best one, but you're gonna ask yourself, well, what if you don't open up Gale Dogra? Well, that's the cool thing about Scrap. It pairs with your entire deck. This is going to be your second normal summon, Aramasa. So once again, are they going to interact here? Your main objective is to ensure that Scrap Synchron resolves. So any normal summon that can force a response, and if it does resolve, it can keep forcing responses, or make it more enticing, until eventually you'll go, okay, Peter, that's the whole point. So if you can find anything that can do something similar, start cooking. So now, we go off. Remember, all this is bait. We're just baiting now with the Mitsurugi stuff. Mitsurugi is good, right? It's good. But a speed of resolving is far better. It's just far better. You get so much more, right? And everything here is sequenced in a way so you're still playing around Nibiru. Assuming they do Nibiru you have the option to revive the Habakiri, but you're going to choose not to. Because if they do, you get nibbed and you're cooked. Because that means this Scrap Synchron does nothing. So at least this way, if they do have nib, and if they do have imperm, I'll show you what I mean. So you do search, but you don't summon. Okay, so right here, if they have nib and imperm, well, obviously you'll try to negate the imperm with this. You'll have to discard something. If they have Nibiru, then it's fine because you resolve everything. You have a token, this will revive itself, and you're going to be able to search your Purification. So you still can have something and not just be left helpless, which is the whole point of the sequence, doing it this way. Just be mindful of that, okay? And then now, from here on out, if they don't have anything else, you're just going to insulate your board now. Nibiru, too late. I have Crystal Wing now. Summoning Habakiri. And now you're using your Mitsurugi rituals to synchro climb into your Crimson target. Which is insane. It's just so insane. Like, obviously, Gale Dogra is like the best one to open, but it doesn't matter. Scrap pairs with the entirety of your deck, and they all force the same interactions. They all force them to use Ash, Imperm, Nibiru, and then play after. Right? That's the whole point. But these sequences are really fun because they're really obscure. They are hard to anticipate. And that's what I'm a big fan of that, you know? You got your Purification now. That counters Dark Ruler. Because I know there's a lot of you that say, oh, Dark Ruler GG. Dark Ruler evenly GG. I'm like, okay. I just... Purification? What do you mean? What do you mean, bro? And some of these boards vary because some of them require you to sequence your hands in a way where you have to use SD earlier in the combo, use it later in the combo, whether you summon Trail of Illumination. So it'll vary, right? And then this we revive our Crystal Wing. So the only difference here that we don't get the Omega Rips. That's the only difference. But that's because of the way we had to sequence our turn. We didn't have a line to get into our Junk Summon, which is perfectly fine. But we did it in a way where we still got to the end board. But this is still pretty damn good. Let's move on to combo number 3. Okay, so just to put into perspective that you don't need to open up Gale Dogra, but Gale Dogra is just insane with... It's just insane with Scrap Synchron, you know? So now that you know that, okay, if they interact with Gale Dogra, then you can still play with the other Mitsurugi cards, right? Because you have 3 Prayers, you have 3 Habakiri, you have 3 Aramasa, so there's more ways to play, right? And obviously, the Mitsurugi cards will bait cards, right? They will bait it. So now we're just trying to get to a 4. This is the whole point of this sequence. While still being in a position that if they do Nibiru you, you'll still at the very least end on your Futsu and your Purification to revive your Mirakumo for the following turn, right? So you're not gonna be like, left helpless. That's the point of the sequencing. Putting it in a way where if they do debut you, then you can still play, right? We'll revive that. Now we go into our speeder. And then right here, if the chain, we negate, and then... Yeah, but if not, resolve. And we don't need the level 1 in this case, because we're able to summon back the level 1 with Asti, which is perfectly fine. We have not used our normal summon yet, so if we needed to summon Gale Dogra, if you want to interchange them, if you don't want to start with the Gale Dogra because you want to make sure that it resolves, then you start with something else, right? It's like that type of thing. Or you want to normal summon a Synchron that usually you'd prefer to preserve a normal summon for, right? You do it that way as well. And all this sequencing is just so convoluted that your opponent will be like, what am I playing against? Like, what even is this? How do I interact? And that's how you capitalize off of the lack of insight that they have upon your deck. And then this is crazy because now we go Scrap Warrior. Like, that's just crazy. Now we just go Scrap Warrior. We're trying to get to our double Omni here. Reduce. Summon Junk Synchron. This is wild, bro. This is wild. We go for our Jura. Crimson targets. Bring back the Omega. Hand it again. We set Purification. We have Futsu Revive. Double Omni. So crazy. And now finally, Prayers and Scrap. Remember, the sequence varies and your end board will be different because of how you started and what extender you started off with, right? Because you're still trying to bait as well. So this is going to be just a 2-card variation, and of course you have other cards that you can play with. This is just an example I'm giving you that Scrap pairs basically all of your deck. And there are other niche card variations that you can do, but these are just like the main ones because they're the most consistent ones that you'll end up doing majority of the time, right? There's 3 Aramasa, there's 3 Habakiri, there's 3 Prayers, right? 3 Gale Dogra, there's Prep. There's so many ways to search your card. So there's tuning, Synchro Fellows, so it's so consistent. And just be mindful that the way this is sequenced, you're in a position where if they do have Nib, you are going to at least end on your Mirakumo and your Trap at the very least. You're not going to be like, oh, I got Nibiru'd, I passed with no interaction, you know? And that's like the worst. Going to Jura. So cool, man. This is awesome. This is where it's pretty funny though. This is where it's pretty funny. Because look at this. We reduce, we usually increase, right? But this time we send an assault. Basically equates to another Omni because you're going to use the effect of Majestic. It's going to banish itself, trigger assault, revive it. You have an Omni, so they have to summon a monster if they want to use droplet. Either way, we negate droplets with this. The board is way more insane because we have this. Negate, if it Dark Ruler us, okay, we'll go negate, tribute this, revive this, and then this will revive Mirakumo to pop something else. It's just, how, that's insane. That's insane. That's crazy. That's just crazy. All right, let me go show you the deck list. Here's the list. It's a bit unconventional because it is above 40. I'm not opposed to as long as it makes sense because you have so many 1 cards because you want to maintain or you want to gain access to a certain card as consistently as possible. But because of the nature of the deck and how it's meant to function, you have to make room for non-engine, which is why I'm not opposed to going even further into a 60 card build because you want to fit as much non-engine as possible. I'm not opposed to, but just for the video, I wanted to keep it under 50 threshold. Like if it's unnecessary, there's no need to go above 50. Just have the necessary engine requirement to be consistent. And I wouldn't mind just adding more hand traps or more non-engine, I think it should be fine. Because one of the things you notice is I'm playing triple scrap synchron, triple tuning, triple synchro fellows, because you want to be able to pair it with your Mitsu, because you lead with this engine first and then you pivot into synchron. So you want to have as much access to it as possible. And then of course you have your main normal summons to pair with the scrap synchron, which is Gale Dogra. As you saw, it's the best combo you can have, but it's not the only one because it pairs with everything else within your deck. It pairs well with Mitsurugi because it demands a response. Summon this, they think you open up weak, because usually that's an indication when you're playing any Mitsurugi variant. If you summon Aramasa, you open it pretty weak. So you want to make sure this resolves. So then that's when you go speeder. And then the payoff of speeder is just insane. The board you can create is amazing. And then you play just one of these guys, so you don't necessarily want to see this. Like getting access to the ritual is not that great. You would rather see this because this gives you access to HABAKIRI. This is just like your main boss monster of Mitsurugi, alongside the guy that keeps reviving them, gives you the grind game. You have one card as well. Wait, this is basically one card. Gets you access to this. And then one of each ritual. You'll be able to sequence out all of your rituals, get enough fodder to get enough materials to synchro with. And then the one purification reinforces your board, helps player on Dark Wheeler, Droplet synchron boards. They just get Dark Wheeler. What do I do? Multiple charmies, throw onto the same amount of engine and extender to push past the interactions that they have produced. And then of course you have double junk synchron. The reason you play double junk synchron is because you need it for the line of full speed warrior, a necessary engine, because you're playing synchro fellow. You want the ability to be able to have a one card with synchro fellow. If you only play tuners, then you can't do the one card speeder, because this will search junk synchron and either search scrap or your stardust synchron, and you're gonna have to pitch one of them. Junk synchron could revive this, but it doesn't really do anything with tuners. You can discard this, but you can't revive this. I guess you can tribute your junk synchron if you summon it. I don't know, search synchro fellows there, but it's a bit weird, right? So that's why you need to be able to have a non-tuner to search to discard off of it. So you go synchro fellows, search junk, search full speed, discard full speed, summon junk, and then try to do a line there. It's a bit fragile because it's unprotected, but it's still something you can do based off consistency. And then even if you do draw this, it's still one card speeder as well. And then of course you have your 3-star synchron. The reason you play 3-star synchron is because it's part of the sequence. What you do is with synchro fellows, right? Let's say you go into Gale Dogra, you pivot into this, you go into scrap warrior, search synchro fellows. Synchro fellows is gonna most likely search stardust synchron junk, and then you're gonna piss the stardust synchron. And then once stardust synchron is in the graveyard, you can use it as an extender, assuming you've resolved a few Mitsurugi effect, which is the whole objective. And then one of them is searched off fellows, one of them is summoned off of speeder, and then the other one is sent off of the Excel line. Usually you make Excel with trail, so it'll give you a token, and that's how you get Beast of the Spatter, which is quite convenient because it's a level 1 dragon token that fits quite well. It's just a good extender for your Mitsurugi cards, because as you saw in the previous builds that I showed you with Diviner, this can tribute off your Aramasa, this can tribute off your HABAKIRI, it can tribute off your Murakumo, Futsu, and then trigger them and then revive them, and then use them as a synchro material. How you're able to get your Crimson Dragon target. So that's why it's at 3 in this particular build. The one rev, there's some cool things you can do, assuming you open up with both of them. So the way you would do it is you'd go summon this, bait in an interaction, tuning, search for your revolution, because basically you have 4 revolution synchrons. You go into your ancient fairy effect, summon your Gale Dogra, and then try to get access to your Mitsurugi card through that, while getting an option to go into your crystal wing as well. Assuming they imprint this, and then you have ash as well. There's a way to do it. This one is okay, because if they do end up stopping your scrap warrior, you can tuning for this and then special and then go speeder that way. That's one way to look at it, I guess. Then of course you have your consistency card, and then of course your non-engine. Once again, I am not opposed to going over 40 with certain decks if it's not affecting the consistency. Usually certain decks have a clear objective of what they want to do. Usually meta decks abide by this logic, by this rule, because they're so linear but efficient that they don't require any sort of variance. But because we're trying to play cards we enjoy, we have to take a different approach. You have to understand this when you're playing this deck, that you'll be at a disadvantage. Not necessarily the best deck, but it's something that can give you an edge based off the lack of insight and how well you know your deck. That's the strength of these variants, and you just keep it in mind, and you won't be questioning like, oh, why am I losing? Well, obviously it's not going to be the best deck, but it'll have a fighting chance, because if you're well aware of every single sequence that you have available, which is what I'm trying to teach you, then you'll be aware of how to outclever your opponent and give you that edge that rogue decks typically have. And I think going to 60 should be fine. Put more non-engine, level the dynamic of engine to hand trap ratio or non-engine ratio. But that's basically it. Right now, I'm just having fun with all of these new support cards, which is Scrap, Synchron, and Scrap Warrior, because if you can find a way to bait in an interaction and use Synchron as a pivot, try exploring it. Because I'm pretty sure there's some cards that you guys are aware of that I am not aware of. And you're like, oh, if you're using it, you can use it this way as well, then I have another card in mind. And then you can start exploring there. This is only because the level 2s pair so well. Scrap Synchron, because that's how you get access to your Scrap Warrior and having it as a resourceful pivot. And now you can consider, what about the level 4s? Are there any normal summon level 4s or any extenders level 4s that you can use that can force a response because they're anticipating a certain sequence to unravel in a way where I have to stop this, otherwise my Ash or my Imperm will just be irrelevant the longer the sequence resolves. If you can put them in that position, try it out. One example I'm going to try is with Oviraptor. Oviraptor is such a hand trap magnet because if they don't hand trap it, Dinos can do it in the same board. But that's the thing, you want to use that to your advantage. I'll just wait for the Mist Grave effect so they won't get the Archosaur, because if you go Archosaur, you pop the baby and then it just goes all crazy and then there's not going to be any way to interact with. And that's what you're hoping for. What you want to resolve is Speeder. That's the whole point. The X-Trick is there. You have your Scrap Warrior double Herald for the Dogra, Excel, Speeder, Ancient Fairy for the line of Rev, and you open up both your normal summons. You have Asti or Stardust, Omega, Crystal, 2 Crimson targets. If you can't get to the 11s, you just make this guy and then Crimson Dragon, bracket him, bring out this, and then hopefully have an Omega line. And of course, your level 11s, replenish your life points, suggest Crimson Dragon. Just have fun with it. The non-engine, once again, don't be opposed to going up to 60. Just put more non-engine so you can open more non-engine. That's gonna be it. I'll leave you with the video. Subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.